There's someone called U.S. Agent.
Yeah.
That's the most generic name I've ever heard.
He's awesome. That's a good place to start. In this episode, we want to cover the upcoming Falcon and Winter Soldier show, soon to premiere on Disney+. This is one of the shows I'm actually very excited for, both for the returning characters in the show and the introduction of characters from the comics that we haven't seen yet. The main thing I think we're going to see in this show is the idea is that who's going to wield the shield. Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes have both spent time in the comics as Captain America, as had John Walker, is going to be called, I think, U.S. Agent in the show from the comics. Each one of those characters spent some significant time as Captain America in the comics. So it looks like this show is going to kind of try to tackle that question of who should be Captain America and who has a say in who is Captain America. So what we've gleaned so far from the trailers, seeing Baron Zemo and kind of hearing this voiceover from the actor portraying him, is that he appears to be resuming his mission that he had in Captain America Civil War, was the elimination of superheroes. This is a character who blames the Avengers for the destruction of Sokovia and the murder of his family. He's got quite the grudge to bear against them. So the idea, I guess, is that he's going to set out to make sure that, some kind of scheme to essentially try to rid the world of superheroes. That was his initial mission, so we're now seeing that continued, and the situation has only gotten worse. Since the events of Age of Ultron, which is kind of Baron Zemo's origin, superheroes have proliferated like crazy throughout the world. So if anything, he's in a worse position now than he was when we first met him in the Civil War movie. So not only are we seeing the return of Baron Zemo, which I'm very excited about, we're also seeing the return of Batroc the Leaper. This guy's a knucklehead and was seen way back in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. He's the pirate that hijacks the ship at the start of the movie. Him and Captain America have a pretty good fight in that movie. This idea of the returning villain, we normally don't see in the movies. The movies tend to kill the villains. And that's a real shame because in the comics, you can't build the rivalry these characters have in the comics if you're killing them in one movie. In this new phase of the MCU, that appears to be changing. Both Baron Zemo and Batroc are coming back for this show. We've seen Baron Zemo in the trailer, which is really cool. He's in a comic-accurate costume. He's got this purple mask on, which is really neat. We haven't, I don't think, seen Batroc in the trailer, but he has been confirmed to be in the show. To what capacity, we don't know, but it's always nice to see a returning villain. There's a character in the trailers, a female character who's wearing a face mask with like a red face print on it. And at first I thought maybe this might be the Red Skull's daughter, Sin, but it's been revealed that this character is actually going to be Carly Morgenthal. This is gender-flipped character. In the comics, Carl Morgenthal was known as Flag Smasher. He was the leader of a group called Ultimatum. It's an acronym. I can't even remember what it stands for. It's not important. What's important is that the organization is dedicated to the elimination of nation states. The idea being is that we shouldn't have all these different countries. Humanity should be united under a single banner. But in the show, it looks like the Flag Smashers will be some kind of terrorist organization. But it's a nice, D-list villain they're bringing into the MCU, which is always a fun thing to see. It has been also hinted at, I think, it was said in an interview by Don Cheadle, or maybe it was reported somewhere else, that War Machine will actually be appearing in the show. That's pretty interesting. War Machine's another great character. He's a character that's going to have to fill the shoes of Iron Man. War Machine's going to be our de facto new Iron Man. Whether or not they change his codename, we'll see in the upcoming Armor Wars show he's appearing in, but not before he appears in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The character I'm probably the most excited for in this show is we're going to see the introduction of U.S. Agent. And U.S. Agent is a character from the comics it came at a time when Captain America became disillusioned with the United States government. After that storyline, Captain America kind of steps back from being Captain America and retires. But the U.S. government isn't ready to not have a Captain America. So they enlist the character named John Walker, who was he had a terrible costume, and I don't even remember what his name is. He was terrible. But they pinned him to be the new Captain America. He takes over for a brief time. Steve Rogers eventually reassumes the mantle of Captain America, and John Walker goes on to become U.S. Agent. So U.S. Agent is essentially like, there's no other way to say it. He's a Republican Captain America. This is a right-wing Captain America. He's very much of a Ronald Reagan style American. And he's kind of a jerk. He's brutal. He's arrogant. But he is a hero. This isn't like a bad guy character. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him in the show. We've only seen glimpses of him. What appears to be like he's at like maybe like a Super Bowl halftime show or something. He's like high-fiving people, and this might be like the big reveal for the introduction of the character of like, hey, here's our new Captain America, backed by the U.S. government. In the newest trailer they released during the Super Bowl, we did see Sharon Carter has returned in this show as well. That's going to be cool just because Sharon Carter, Winter Soldier, and the Falcon were kind of like Cap's little group of buddies from the Winter Soldier movie through Captain America Civil War. So it's that dynamic of those characters all interacting will be cool, and kind of seeing them figuring out who's supposed to take over the mantle of Captain America. So the comics that appear to be influencing this show primarily is going to be run on Captain America in the early 2000s by Ed Brubaker. He relaunched Captain America with the new #1. It's probably the best run of Captain America they've ever done. Easily my favorite. The entire concept of the Winter Soldier comes out of this run in the comics. In comics, there was always this unwritten rule that everyone comes back from the dead except for Ben Parker, Spider-Man's uncle, and Bucky Barnes, Captain America's World War II sidekick. That had been kind of an unwritten rule in comics for decades until Brubaker came along and had the idea to resurrect Bucky Barnes and create him as the Winter Soldier. And people were furious. I hated it. I thought it was a terrible idea until I read the book, and he knocked it out of the park. It was incredible. The way they brought Bucky Barnes back, the way they did the Winter Soldier, was pitch perfect. And to compound that even further, they then killed Captain America in the monthly book and then had Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, take over as Captain America. Rick Remender had done the story where Steve Rogers lost the super soldier serum and it aged to his actual age, not the physical perfection the super soldier serum kept him genetically locked at. He was unable to maintain the role of Captain America, so he passed it on to the Falcon. After that storyline, Nick Spencer launched a book called All New Captain America. That book will influence the show because that's the primary book we saw Sam Wilson as Captain America. So I think and hope what we'll see is some of the political elements pulled that Nick Spencer put in his run. He didn't shy away from politics in that book, and people can say, keep politics out of my comics. Captain America is inherently a political book. The premiere issue of Captain America, and on the cover, Captain America was punching Hitler in the face. That was like months before America entered the war. A lot of Americans didn't want to enter the war, so that was a very provocative book to have a comic book character punching a world leader in the face on the cover. It's baked into the book that it's a political book. So anyone who says, get politics out of my comics, you don't understand these have been part of the comics from the get-go. Falcon says at one point in the trailer, he says that S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot of complicated history. And what he may be referencing is in the comics, they retcon this. This wasn't something they initially put in the comics. It was something that came later, was that the super soldier serum that was given to Steve Rogers, he wasn't the first recipient of that formula. That formula was tested out on Black Americans to disastrous results. Isaiah Bradley, the original Captain America, his grandson becomes Patriot in the comics. So the groundwork for these characters has been laid. The big surprise we've seen in the trailer is the inclusion of what appears to be Madripoor. It's this neon Asian city. In the trailer, we only see it very briefly, but in the comics, this is more important for characters like the X-Men. Madripoor is basically like a criminal country, and it's one of these countries that has an immense disparity between the wealthiest of the country and the poorest of the country. Madripoor's inclusion in this show might just be as an exotic destination for the characters to go to, but it just lays a lot of groundwork for what they could be doing in the future regarding the X-Men. The X-Men spent a lot of time in Madripoor. Wolverine specifically has a lot of history in Madripoor. It's possible we could have a cameo or we can have a run-in with some of these characters that have ties to this corner of the world that we haven't really seen in the MCU so far. So if you like this content and want to see more like it, feel free to subscribe below. If you want to follow me over on social media, you can find me on Instagram at TheBraveButterPecan. If you're looking for more content like this, I co-host a weekly podcast called Caffeinated Comics. You can find anywhere you find your podcasts. If you're interested in any of the titles we've mentioned during this episode, I'd encourage you to support your local comic book store. If you don't know where your local comic book store is, you can go to comicshoplocator.com, type in your zip code, and they'll show you the nearest store.